それでは
Now we'd like to start RBA-ILO-JP-MIRAI co-organized symposium, the fair, and to think about the symposium on challenges for fair and ethical recruitment of migrant workers. This is the Kasia of JP-MIRAI will be the moderator of today's program. Thank you very much. My name is Kasia. And for this symposium, we have the those who are participating. There are 50, in addition to 50 participants in this venue, there are 256 people have applied for this symposium to attend this symposium. Thank you very much for attending this symposium today. And let me mention some of the cautioning points. First, in this symposium, in this venue, and the webinar, hybrid broadcasting is done. And in this JP-MIRAI website, the documents are disclosed and available on our website of JP-MIRAI. So there's a URL code is written for those in the venue. For those participating on the webinar, in the chat section, that information is available. On the venue and also on the webinar, you can use the simultaneous interpretation function. For the webinar, on the top right bottom, please choose original language, either Japanese or English of your own language preference, based on your own language preference. And then from Q&A section, please write your question in the Q&A box. In the last Q&A session, we will try to answer as much as possible those questions being asked, if the time allows. And on behalf of the organizer, from the Responsible Business Alliance, CEO, Mr. Robert Ledler, will make the opening remark. Please.
So thank you all very much, and what a pleasant honor it is to be here with you today. Mr. Maeda, certainly with the Ministry of Justice, Mr. Yabuki, with JP-MIRAI, certainly to our friends of the ILO. Thank you all for this partnership and for our ability to come together. My name is Rob Lederer, and I'm the CEO of the Responsible Business Alliance, and certainly it is our pleasure to welcome you to the Symposium on Challenges in Fair and Ethical Recruitment of Migrant Workers, co-organized by JP-MIRAI, the ILO, and the Responsible Business Alliance. You know, fair and ethical recruitment has been a pillar of the RBA for years. Freely chosen employment is actually the first and most prominent section of the RBA Code of Conduct. And while there's certainly many drivers of forced labor, the payment of recruitment fees to obtain work is one of the most widespread factors that can contribute to the situations of forced labor. In many countries, it is common for workers, especially migrant workers, to be charged recruitment fees and other costs to obtain and to retain employment. In many cases, workers may have to borrow money to pay these recruitment fees and costs, taking on debts that certainly leave them vulnerable to exploitation and unable to leave their jobs until the debt is repaid, contributing to situations of forced labor as we know it. As part of the RBA Code of Conduct and in alignment with international standards, the RBA has a clear position that workers should not have to pay to get a job. And if found have been paid by workers, they should be reimbursed as soon as practical. These just aren't words on a piece of paper. We live into these provisions every day by supporting them with our industry tools, services, data, and forums for collective action. Building a market of ethical recruitment to meet the increased regulatory expectations around the world for responsible recruitment with actions on the ground is a key priority of the RBA. To help address these issues, the RBA is taking a more holistic approach that focuses on the work of certainly our organization, the work of our members, the work of our partners around the world, where there is a clear demand signal for ethical recruitment. In the last 3 years alone, we've helped return over $54 million in recruitment fees, impacting over 40,000 individual workers. This is only possible through the collective commitment and engagement of the member companies that are affiliated with the RBA through what we call leverage, to work in the collective and to create the clear demand side for responsible recruitment. Over the past few years, efforts to combat forced labor in global supply chains has intensified and evolved. Due diligence legislative, import bans, and market withdrawal mechanisms have become common tools in governments around the world to protect human rights and promote their shared values within their economies. At the national level, efforts have been made to improve the regulatory framework for recruitment migrant workers. And in that regard, we welcome the work done by the Employment for Skilled Development Program in June of 2024 by the Japanese government. As the leading experts in the field, we understand that successful development of new programs will depend very much on the continuous dialogue and deepened collaboration among policymakers, the private sector, both in the sending and receiving countries, and international organizations and civil society working closely together. Therefore, we're pleased to partner with JP-MIRAI and the International Labor Organization to co-organize this symposium with the goals of, one, to connect the private sector with policymakers and key stakeholders, discuss the formation of new programs within the context of national and international standards. Two, to stimulate the meaningful dialogue to understand the possible measures to address current obstacles to align the new programs with those international standards. And three, to explore collaborative actions among the stakeholders toward building a fair and ethical recruitment system. Again, I would like to thank JP-MIRAI and the ILO for working closely with us to prepare this symposium in such a short time. And I want to thank all the distinguished guests, panelists, RBA members, JP-MIRAI members, and all the stakeholders for your active participation and support in this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, from ILO presentation for the ILO's approach to the fair recruitment from ILO International Labor Organization, Asia Pacific Region Triangle Program Chief Technical Advisor, Ms. Anna Ingblom will speak. Please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Master of Shares. Colleagues from JP-MIRAI and RBA, thank you for co-organizing this meeting with us today. Everyone who are here from JICA, the Mekong Migration Network, Ministry of Justice, employers, recruitment agencies, trade unions, and all participants, a very good afternoon to you. So my name is Anna Engblom. I'm from the ILO Regional Office based in Bangkok, operating a project where we do many things, but promoting fair recruitment within the ASEAN region is one of the focuses of our work. I am here this afternoon to share with you more broadly about the ILO global approach to fair recruitment. Before I get into my presentation, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate everyone for all your efforts on establishing a fair recruitment corridor between Vietnam and Japan. I think this model that you are developing and this pilot really has the potential to be a strong and solid example in Asia, in the Asia region, as well as globally. So at the ILO, from the ILO, we look forward to see how this model develops and also to work together with all the partners in shaping it moving forward. So I have around 12 slides that I want to share with you. In these slides, I will talk a little bit about the recruitment context, what is fair recruitment and what are the benefits. I will introduce the ILO general principle and operational guidelines on fair recruitment, and talk a little bit about some of the emerging good practices we see from the region. So, of course, ILO recognizes recruitment as a major and a very important function of labor markets that contributes, when well managed, they contribute greatly to strengthening national economies. So recruitment is important as it connects job seekers with employers when they have lost work or looking for new career development, or as in the case of migrant workers, when they are looking for better opportunities abroad. It also helps employers in connecting and finding talent and meet labor market gaps that they have, including when sourcing workers from abroad. So as you all know, there are broadly speaking 3 ways to recruit workers. First, directly, and that is often the case when an employer is hiring professional or higher skilled workers. Recruitment can also happen through public employment services, and Korea does so through the EPS mechanism that I'm sure you are all familiar with. Perhaps the most common way of recruiting is through private recruitment agencies, and that is when it comes to migration and when it comes to recruitment of workers in elementary or low-skilled, almost 100% of workers are being hired through private recruitment agencies. When we compare recruitment of national workers with migrant workers, it gets a little bit more complicated. International recruitment is affected by immigration regulations, fragmented labor market information, the fact that there are many more workers that are looking for jobs abroad than there are employment opportunities, as well as weak enforcement of laws. Women migrant workers have additional challenges. In some countries, for example, there are barriers or bans on women to migrate for certain employment. For example, some countries have bans on women migrating for domestic work abroad. Another feature of recruitment is the fact that recruitment costs are regressive. And with that, I mean that the higher a worker is on the skills level means that the less they pay. So a worker that are going abroad for a professional job often don't pay any recruitment costs at all. Their employer always covers everything. But for workers that are in occupation where they earn less, they also pay more. All right. So we already heard Rob elaborating on some of the recruitment abuses that we see, but I've outlined on the slide some common forms of abuse, both in pre-departure and in destination. In pre-departure, we see illegal recruitment fees and costs charged that are above what is allowed in national legislation, debt and high interest rate, Rob already mentioned. There is also deception and fraud. In destination, there are issues. This is not specifically for Japan, but for recruitment more globally. We see issues related to contract substitution, retention of passports, debt bondage, and in many cases, workers are not allowed to change employers. So one very important factor in recruitment is high recruitment costs. And of course, this is directly linked to forced labor. So the ILO have been doing a number of studies within specific corridors, looking at what migrant workers pay to migrate. In the studies, we are using standardized methodologies, so these costs can be compared between corridors. So you see here, for example, in a study from 2020, we see that migrant workers from Bangladesh who are working in Malaysia, they paid up to the equivalent of almost 17 months of destination side wages. So a year and a half in destination salaries they had to pay. This led Malaysia to sign an MOU with Bangladesh, where they made it very clear that costs and fees related to recruitment should be covered by the employer and not the worker. In 2019, the Statistics Bureau of Vietnam did a study that found that Vietnamese workers pay the equivalent of 7.4 months in destination country wages. And if you want to know how much they are paid, or they paid at that time, to work in Japan, you can download the study. It's available online. In Thailand, for example, we did another study that looked at Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and you can see they only pay around 2 months, which is more acceptable. So what are the benefits of fair recruitment? I think you all, because you are interested in this subject, you're working on this subject, so I think this is already very clear to you. But as you can see here, there are clear benefits for both workers, employers, and governments. And there are many. I won't necessarily go through them, but if you want to look at them in more detail, you can refer to the slides later. All right. So given the importance that the ILO gives to recruitment as a labor market function, but also the realization of the many abuses that takes place as part of the recruitment process, the ILO set up what we call the Fair Recruitment Initiative in 2014. So this year we are commemorating 10 years of implementation of this particular program. Of course, a lot of work have been done under this initiative, including, for example, developing this research approach that I mentioned earlier. But perhaps the most important outcome is the document in red here called the ILO General Principles and Operational Guidelines for Fair Recruitment. It came out in 2016. And the definition of recruitment fees and related costs that should not be paid by migrant workers that came in 2019. I will talk more about this in my next slides. Just to say that this document is informed by all relevant international labor standards that the ILO has, and some of them are on this slide. One that is particularly important is the Private Employment Agency Convention that Japan ratified in 1999. Okay, so here is the document, the General Principles on Fair Recruitment in a nutshell. As you can see, it consists of 13 general principles, and when you look at those in detail, it's clear that they are quite, there's nothing that is difficult to agree with here. Just to highlight a few, there are things like, for example, that workers should have clear and transparent employment contracts, migrant workers should have access to free, comprehensive and accurate information. There should be freedom of movement and no retention of ID documents. Migrant workers should have the freedom to terminate employment contract and to safe return, and also have access to dispute resolution and effective remedies. The one point that is specifically important, and that also Rob mentioned as a central component of RBA's work, is that migrant workers should not pay recruitment fees and costs for work. No one should have to buy their employment. So the second part is the definition of recruitment fees and related costs. And just perhaps to share with you the background to this, when the ILO developed the general principles in 2016, this is not a document, by the way, that is written by the ILO. It's a document that is negotiated through a multi-year process of workers, employers, and governments from many countries of the world. In 2016, it was not possible to agree on the definition of costs and fees, not to be charged, not to be paid by the workers. It took 3 years, and that's why this only came out in 2019. So, what you see here is what these fees and costs are, and it consists of 3 components. The first is recruitment fees, which is the payment for recruitment services offered by labor recruiters. And then we have the cost component, and that consists of 2 parts. The last is any illicit cost, and this is of course clear. I think we all agree. There should be no bribes, there should be no extortions, there should be no kickbacks, and if this happens, of course, they should not be pushed to the worker. The second part is the related costs, and this is actually, in most cases, the biggest part of the total cost that workers pay. And these are this. Okay, so the document has identified these 7 cost categories. They include medical costs, for example, checkups that workers are required to do before they migrate. They include insurance costs. This could be, for example, contributions to migrant worker welfare funds that some of the origin countries have. There are costs for skills and qualification tests that are required by employers. There are also costs for training and orientation, and this is an area that I know there are often many questions about, but this relates to training and orientation that is the requirement of the employers. So if we take, for example, language, if the employer says that I have to speak English to be qualified for this job, that is not a recruitment cost because it's a general skill that I need to have. But if the employer says you need to speak English and you have to get your English skills by participating in this specific training program, then it is a cost that it's initiated by the employer. So then it becomes a related, a related cost. The next area is equipment costs, for example, PPEs or tools that you need to do the tasks in the destination that you're hired for. There is travel and lodging costs that takes place during the recruitment process. And lastly, there is also administrative costs. These relates to, for example, passport, visas, work permits, residence permits, and other administrative costs that are required to work abroad. So these are the 7 broad areas. Now, what is important to note is that in each country, the competent authority, in most cases the Ministry of Labor, can determine exceptions. And that has then to be done through a consultation of workers and employers organization, and should also be the interest of the workers. So this is not cast in stone, this is for suggestion, and it should be defined in regulations within the different countries. Okay, so this is my last slide, and this is just to share with you some good development that we have seen in the Asia region since 2014. Well, actually some of them goes back longer, because this includes, for example, the ratification of 181 by Japan, which I mentioned was in 1999, but also Fiji and Mongolia have ratified this convention. So not that many countries, unfortunately, but we hope to see increased ratification of this convention in the years to come. There has been a lot of attention to revision of national legislation to comply with these principles that I've talked about. We have seen Ethiopia, Jordan, Indonesia, Lebanon, Nepal, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, UAE, and Vietnam, all revising their laws. Not to perfection, there is still scope, but it goes in the right direction. Philippines, for example, have in legislation said that workers in specific sectors who are going to Japan are not required to pay any fees, and that includes those going for domestic work, seafarers, and performing arts and entertainers. Sri Lanka has similar legislation, and Australia and New Zealand also have legislation for their seasonal workers. So with that, I have completed my presentation, and I look forward to responding to any questions that you may have later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you have any question, please send us a question from Q&A section of the webinar. Thank you. And next is from the ILO, the Ministry of Justice, Immigration Service Agency, the Mr. Tamaki Maeda, please. Good afternoon. I'm from the Ministry of Justice, the Immigration Service Agency. My name is Maeda. Thank you very much for attending this symposium today for this recruitment optimization or appropriate recruitment for the immigrant workers. And the, based on the, I'll talk about the overview of the developmental workers labor system we have in Japan. Let me briefly introduce myself. For the receiving international workers, we had the keynote Jitsu system skill training program, the bilateral program, and also in 2022, the in the expert meeting in 2022, that for the review of that system was done. Today, we have the specific for the we are working on the appropriate of use of this skill training programs we have in Japan. So let me explain about that. First of all, this is the in Japan. This is the non-Japanese or foreigners living in Japan. Numbers of people, the foreigners in Japan, have been increasing, as you can see in this graph. As you can see, in Japan, the numbers of the foreigners after the East Japan Great Earthquake or after the COVID-19 pandemic, if you exclude those two periods, then it is every year we have seen the increase of the foreigners. At the end of 2024, highest 3.76 million, 8,977 people. But also, as you can see, the total population percentage of foreigners against the total population of Japan, at the end of 2023, the numbers of foreigners percentage reached 2.74% at the end of 2023. Compared to the previous year, it was the increase of 0.28 points. Next, I'd like to talk about the qualification or the status of those foreigners living in Japan. Compared to 2014, 10 years ago, and compare that with the end of 2024, if we compare the status of those foreigners, that is the numbers of people, foreigners, are 1.8 times, but in 10 years' time, as you can see, skilled trainees is about 290,000 increase. That is the technical skills and the arts and liberal arts knowledge and international works is the increase of the 295,000, and also foreign students increased by 188,000.
続いて在留外国人の
So now let's take a look at the composition of foreign residents by nationality and its region. As I have indicated earlier, but in comparison to the end of 2014 and 2024, so the biggest number is China. This is unchanged. However, at the end of 2014, where it was ranked number 5, Vietnam, so that increased by 535,000, became number 2. And Nepal, where it was positioned, ranked in number 9, has increased by 191,000 and ranked in number 5. And then it is hard to say from this graph, but for those from Indonesia, approximately 30,000 increased to 200,000. So increased by 170,000. And Myanmar as well, from 10,000 to 135,000, increased by 125,000. And so this is the overview and the composition of foreign residents by nationality. So let's take a look at the technical training system and skill system, which I'd like to briefly explain the overview. So first, when it comes to this technical training system for a while, so this is something to accept the foreign residents from the developing countries through OJT to contribute for the betterment of the international contribution, which has been established from 1993. Since the establishment, over 3 decades have been in operation, although went through a series of revisions. So the skills, so this 1 year, and for a technical internship 1, number 2 for 2 years, so in total up to 5 years at a maximum. And we'll be able to encompass whole breadth of the professions. So currently, for number 2, transition, subject to transition to skill for construction, agriculture, farming. So encompassing 91 types of professions and 168 tasks, we receive the technical trainees. On the other hand, as you can see on the bottom part, so with regards to the specified skill system in Japan, due to this short labor situation in Japan, for improvement of the productivity, and we have still struggling to secure the labor force, so-called specified industrial field. So limited to these specified industrial fields, so those that has such skill sets, and we do have such system to accept them, and this has been in operation since April of 2019. So this is number 1, number 2 for that one, and the internship. So this is the maximum up to 5 years. But for number 2, there is no limitation of length of stay. So for such specified industrial field where it has 16 fields currently, among which on the slide, which is in bold black letters, for nursing care, building, cleaning, industrial production, manufacturing, construction, shipbuilding, and marine industry. Other than that, only skill sets number 1 are accepted. So next, I would like to talk about the number of technical interns and specified technical foreigners residing in Japan. So as for the technical interns, trainees, excluding those COVID pandemic days, has been on the rise. So December 2024, and from number 1 to number 3 in total, we have marked the highest ever, about 457,000 have been accepted. And for the specified technical foreign trainees, at the end of December in 2024, combining number 1 and number 2, we have approximately 285,000 residing in Japan. So now I would like to talk about the system review. So this is to talk about the importance of foreign talent, international competition for talent, which I'd like to give you some of the backdrop of the situation. So one being that in Japan, so this importance of foreign talent, international competition for talent hiring, from that perspective in Japan, due to the low birth rate and decline of the population. So until 2040, 12 million, the working age group, are expected to decline. And in the previous slide, there has been many specified technical trainees that work in Japan. So such skilled trainees and specified skilled foreign nationals will be the core center of the Japanese economy and society, and also in the neighboring countries like Korea and Taiwan. And such countries and regions also accept foreign workers. So therefore, there has been extended to intensifying competition for human resources. Therefore, in Japan, so we see that there is all the more important for Japan to attract and retain foreign human resources. In addition, with regards to this system, much challenges have been identified. So therefore, this really has been the situation where we have reviewed the system. So pointing out the discrepancy between the objectives of the system and the actual situation. And this continuity with the specific skills of the target occupation in the field. And those professions and the unclear career path after the completion of the training, since they are expected to go back to their country. So due to those reasons, there has been unclear career path. And also insufficient guarantee of rights as the worker. And existence of improper sending and receiving and supervising cases. So not enough protection on the workers' side. And also serving as our theme for today's symposium, challenges for fair, ethical recruitment of migrant workers. So in addition to that, so Japan has seen such challenging situation about the disappearances and brokers' intervention have been identified. Therefore, in lieu of the system, we need to establish a new system and become the country of choice amongst the foreign workers. So this really led us to the review of the system and to extend it to the this system overview. So now I would like to explain about the overview of this employment system. So against the backdrop, so in 2024, June 21st, the Immigration Control Refugee Recognition Act, so appropriate implementation of technical intern training for foreign nationals and protection of technical intern trainees have been enacted. So promulgation of the Act for partial revision of the law concerning the promotion of the environment and safety. And so effective from April to June 2027, overhaul the technical internship system and establish a training employee system will be taking place. So I'd like to talk about the purpose of this system.
For this program, in this employment for skill development program, for 3 years, through the work in Japan for 3 years, to be able to become the level of the specified skill worker program of the #1 level, that is to be those human resources to be developed, and also the human resource to be obtained, and that is the human resource. That is the purpose of this employment for skill development program. And for in terms of the TITP, there's the international contribution had been the aim of this program, but in the employment for skill development program, it does include the development of the skilled workers and specified skilled workers. Also, the development of the workers themselves are the purpose of that. So next, in terms of in the employment for skill development program, just like the specified skilled worker program, in the operation of that program, we have the basic policy has been need to be specified. And in this law change, and for the formulating the the basic policy, we have the experts committee that the expert committee need to be held to invite opinions of the experts and various kind of people. So in the government, in the 2017, for the foreign cabinet minister meeting was conducted in regards to the specified skilled worker program, and also for the employment for skill development program, expert committee or discussion forum was held, and then the March 11th, and in the cabinet ministers meeting, the basic policy has been determined and adopted. And based on this basic policy, that is be specified and to be also with the specified skilled worker program as well. Next, in the for the employment for skilled development program, just like the specified skilled worker program area, and in each of the industry area, this is the receiving policy. There will be operational policy need to be specified as well. In the program, just like the specified skilled worker program, in receiving in the employment skill development program, there will be numbers of the limits in the upper cap is being, and also receiving those workers are being specified as well. But each area in 2025 need to be formulated by December 2025 of the policy, of the operational policy of that system program. And also, also to let me explain about in the employment for skill development program, just like the TITP specified skilled worker program, in the receiving company, for each worker, the foreign worker, they need to make this the plan for the development and the skill development program itself. That is to be made within 3 years, and in this period, and in the skills as well as the Japanese language skills. That is the goals, and the contents will need to be specified. So as I mentioned earlier, in the development plan need to be developed by the company that hiring those, and then they be applying the foreign labor. They need to be certified by the organization of the public organization to certify that as well. Next, let me talk about the supporting of the recruitment agencies in Japan, and then just like in the receiving company, and to be able to conduct the appropriate management and to support the recruitment as well, so that those need to be have the recruitment agencies to have the administration organization need to be made. Those companies have been supporting, but in this employment for skill development program, from the perspective of the neutrality and independence, for example, to have the duty to establish the outside auditors, and as a to be able to those staff, external staff can be engaged, and this is the requirement for these supporting and recruitment the administration organizations. In these organizations, compared to the some of the management organizations, some of the assumed to have the used, but in the permit, even if they are permitted as the administration agents organization, they have to get the permission to have the administration and support organization for this permit need to be approved and accredited by the Minister of Justice. And next, for let me talk about the appropriate sending out from the recruitment agencies in the countries of origin. This is a bilateral agreement need to be reached, and for this, from the country of origin, if the fees should not be too high, and to be able to secure the appropriate level of the sending out, and later I will explain about that more in detail about this aspect for the fees. And then let me talk about the environmental change. In this, there be if there's some unless there's some specific situation, it was in the informal TITP program, you cannot transfer your job, but then now with in the employment for skill development program, the worker can work for different companies or different companies and different jobs. It is possible based on their skill development. And then in a relationship to the community, there will be community council need to be started to promote the promotion of the employment for the skill development program from foreign countries. Lastly, let me talk about the measures to have the appropriate of the in foreign workers in TITP, technical training intern program. They have some of the workers had to borrow money to be able to come to Japan. That was one of the reasons why they escaped their work, and for from the country of origin, from the recruitment agency in country of origin had some the kickback in the appropriate way of operating on this. So therefore, we have placed a measure for the employment for skill development program. First of all, there's a certified standard criteria for the certifying for the employment for skill development program. The condition need to be set so that no worker would bear large amount of debt, should not bear the large amount of debt, and then the expenses that the recruitment agency in the country of origin, they should, by asking the information to be disclosed, have more transparency is now being considered from the recruitment agencies in country of origin. So therefore, the fees comparison is possible. So that by the competition, they also can expect the reduced fees that they would pay to the recruitment agency in the country of origin, and also recruitment for those kickback and also collision to have it should not have some illegal fraudulent giving the money. And for just like the specified skilled worker program, in the employment skill development program, we would need to make the bilateral agreement between the two countries so that the guidance and also regular meeting, as well as the request for the investigation, and those need to be made in an appropriate way. And also, in principle, in a bilateral agreement, only to start with, only bilateral agreement is placed with the other counterpart countries, then we can start receiving the foreign workers so that we can eliminate those malicious sending the recruitment agency in the country of origin. So that is I have explained about the overview of the Employment for Skill Development Program from the Immigration Service Agency of Japan. We have like to work with all the stakeholders, and we like to will be receiving all the feedbacks and opinions and comments from the various stakeholders and organizations. I would like to continue this program. Thank you very much. And the further programs. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。何かご質問。
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we would like to receive questions in the Q&A session. So moving on to the next presenter. So we would like to welcome Mr. Carlos Busque. And to ask Mr. Carlos Busque, Director of Labor Issues, RBA, to give us the presentation about considering the optimization of migrant worker recruitment.
Once again, also thank JP-MIRAI and the ILO for being such a strong partner of the RBA. I'm going to take this opportunity to maybe go a little bit deeper into what our CEO, Rob Lederer, said earlier on sort of how we implement responsible recruitment and forced labor due diligence. Clearly, this has been one of the top priorities for RBA, and it's really one of the areas where collective action and working in partnership is so really important. But first, maybe let me talk a little bit about the Responsible Labor Initiative, which is RBA's arm or initiative that really works on ethical recruitment. So RBA, obviously, as you know, is the parent organization, but clearly at a very early stage, we realized that in order to address ethical recruitment, fair recruitment, we really needed to work across industries, across partners, so not only with RBA members. And so in June 2017, we launched the RLI, really with an explicit focus for end-to-end ethical recruitment due diligence, focusing on forced labor in supply chains. And by having these kind of programs and these initiatives, as you see, we can take the reach of RBA and go forward and impact even deeper. Just looking at 600 plus members with $8 trillion of annual revenue, and really most importantly, impacting 85 million workers in the supply chain. And this is just a small sample of the core members of RBA. Many of you are in this room, but also how we stretch forward and address and even work with other industries such as textile and apparel, food and ag, to really kind of address this issue of recruitment. But where do we begin and why do we do it? Well, first, it's our standard, our code of conduct. So the RBA has a code of conduct that's updated every 3 years. Labor is a key component of it. Obviously, it does touch on ethics, environment, health, and safety with a management systems approach that brings it all together. Forced labor, freely chosen employment is A1 of our code. So it's really the foundational benchmark of everything we do. But just having a standard is not enough. Here, we talk a little bit about, here's A1, the prohibition on forced labor, and I probably can't see, but clearly recruitment fees is a key component of this. Back in 2015, RBA was one of the first, if not the first organization to go to zero fees recruitment. But then how do you implement that? It's easy to have a standard and, to write a standard or have a standard in practice, but going onto the ground, working across complex markets, across recruitment corridors is quite challenging. The next step that we did, and obviously this work evolves over time, as I've mentioned, is define what are the applicable fees that a worker can or cannot pay. I think the ILO touched on this. So we actually started with the definition of fees, I believe, back in 2015, and it's been updated over time. We participated in the ILO meeting, I think it was in 2019, you know, to kind of try to align on fees. And obviously we align on international standards. That's a really important point, to really give our members the blueprint to be able to kind of bring these issues into reality. When we look at, and this is actually, I'm just going to click through, what are fees? I mean, this is a very, very complex topic. Again, also my colleague from the ILO touched on it earlier. Workers, but the core principle is that workers shall not be required to pay fees for their employment. Of course, there are some fees that they can pay, but what are some of these fees that they will not pay? So things like application, recommendation, you see here documentation, permits, arrivals, onboarding, and a whole host of others. And I think really this is why we do this. It's because the workers that we are trying to address in these situations are vulnerable workers, or workers that are in a state of fragility. And so it's really to protect them as much as possible in terms of making sure that we are not placing them in a situation of debt bondage, placing them in a situation of forced labor. We can obviously go more deeply into this later in terms of fees, but I just wanted to give a flavor of what is the benchmark, what is the bedrock for us on this work. And of course, just having these standards is not enough, so we've developed a whole suite of tools, standards, capacity building programs, mainly under the RBA and the RLI. So we started, I said, the first two, which are our code of conduct and our definition of fees, but we've evolved this work over the last decade so much more. So we have specialized social compliance assessments on forced labor that are meant to go deep and identify the issue of whether it's recruitment fees, passport retention, and other ILO indicators of forced labor. We have a standard for investigation and repayment of fees. Rob alluded to the, I think it was over 50 million, significant figure getting money back into the hands of workers. So we have a standard that we go out and investigate these issues, apply rigorous methods to then calculate what is owed back to the workers and get them repaid. And of course, a whole range of other tools that are there so that we don't have to repay the workers and ideally prevent this issue from happening, and that includes due diligence toolkits, as well as a number of other programs. I think in the middle, you see this responsible recruitment program. I'm gonna focus the rest of my remarks a bit on that, and I think, one of the things that we highlighted, so as I said, RLI was formed in 2017, 2018 through the RBA's foundation. We really said, how do we actually change the market? I mean, we said earlier, we need to create a viable, durable market or demand side for ethical recruitment. Well, the responsible recruitment program was, I would say, our attempt at trying to address this. So what was it? So from 2018 to 2023, in two phases, we ran a program that was essentially a maturity pathway. So we looked at private recruitment agencies, which are sort of the key players in bringing workers across, including here into Japan, and said, how can we create a process or a pathway for them through capacity building, through verified self-assessments and others, for them to source labor ethically. The idea was to not so much that RBA would certify, we're not a certifying body, but that we would work with others that would create a certification equivalency to do that. So we started on this pathway early on. It was really in 2018. First, we started even with some pilots with about 10 recruitment agencies. Then we went to about 61, and then really phase 2, which really kind of intensified after some support from the Walmart Foundation. And we're looking at 2 key corridors for our members, which were Indonesia to Malaysia and Nepal to Malaysia, in partnership with the International Organization for Migration. What did we find? So really, if we look at the first phase, which ended in March of 2021, we had 94 recruitment agencies trained, a number of verified SAQs, 27 assessed. We then went into phase 2, again, looked at another 92, 26, 17, 13 went through the SVAP. So the ones that actually did sign up for the program were finalizing it now for certification. There are about 12 to 13, I believe, that are in a process, one level or another, to get certification. So what does that all mean? It means this is very hard. You know, just by seeing the amount of work we did, and that was 5 years, and the amount of agencies that we took through, and you know, just looking at some of the numbers, we were able to quite successfully train a lot of them on what is a zero fees model, how to do it, what does it mean. But if you actually look at the ones that are actually certified, the number is fairly small, right? And this has happened with other groups that have done so. It's not exclusive to the RBA. One of the challenges, well, we have to work more with suppliers and employers. And I think that's an area where obviously through our members, but also their, you know, RBA doesn't just bring the companies that I showed earlier, we bring their supply chain in. And so we need to do more work with both the suppliers and employers to get them to understand and move towards ethical recruitment. And I think right now, when you look at the regulations that are either in place, such as the US Tariff Act, but also particularly in Europe with the forced labor regulation and the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, you know, this is going to be a requirement to at least sell into 2 of the largest markets in the world. Two critical points that we learned through this RRP program was that, one, there has to be an economic incentive for private recruitment agencies. So the simple reality is that these are businesses, and in order for them to opt for this model, there has to be an economic opportunity for them. I mean, some of the things that we did find, kind of anecdotally, was that when some agencies in this Malaysia-Indonesia corridor or Nepal corridor opted for ethical recruitment, they lost business, significant amount of business. So that obviously cannot build a market if they're losing business. The hybrid business model is a challenge. So what does that mean? That means that an agency could be sourcing from, let's say, an RBA member or one, you know, group of workers that are not paying fees, but then sourcing to another one or a domestic that do. So it creates a hybrid model. This is a challenge, right? And then just really a lot of programs, and so some confusion in the market by a lot of different certifications and overlapping programs and requirements. And then a really important aspect, and I'm so pleased that we have the government here, Japanese government, but also the ILO, is we need to get government involvement from the buying and sending countries early on. They have to be leaning into this. This is a very difficult and a critical process. And then, of course, engaging the workers, not just kind of like when they're gone, forget about them, but how do we check in? How do we leverage some of the tools that we have? So what does that leave us? So we're now in the process of developing what we're calling RRP 2.0. It's not a very original name, so it's a bit of a work in progress. But really, that's a little bit to what Rob said earlier, is focus on the demand side. So what does that mean? That means that, you know, we feel that while we had a lot of success in training private recruitment agencies and working with them in this first phase of the program, we feel our value add is working with our members and their suppliers to then basically address that second point, that second lesson learned that I mentioned, which is that we need to create a viable marketplace. So that means we have to leverage the signal coming from the regulations to create a viable business model and a viable demand for the sourcing of labor from quote unquote ethical recruiters or recruiters that are moving in that direction. So this is obviously, a lot of this is we are going to focus on our suppliers and members, and we're going to work with partners. You know, there are a whole range of them. JP-MIRAI is one that can work on driving those recruitment agencies' capacity building and assurance activities to move them forward. And then a lot of this is just simply mapping. So we have a lot of data. And so we're harnessing that data to understand on what part of the journey a lot of these recruitment agencies that we went to, that we audited, that we looked at, that we did capacity building on over the past 5 years, a process for our members to nominate recruitment agencies, and then of course capacity building and assurance. And so this is right now what we're working on. It's a program that is really more of a process than a program. So it's really going to be where RBA and RLI will drive the demand, sort of as I mentioned, and then really work with our partners. And again, this is an open call. It's not only going to look at those corridors. I mean, certainly Malaysia, Japan, Vietnam, these are critical markets for our members, and we're always going to be involved. But if this can work and this process can work, it's really going to bring everybody on board, and we can look at other areas. And then again, the bottom line, or I would say the most important aspect that we want to bring out of it is, you know, create this viable pipeline, make this the way to do business, and also like find ways so that private recruitment agencies can have healthy, sustainable business models, and really keep this very important role, play this very important role, which is helping source workers, you know, across and giving opportunity to these workers to help build their lives. So this is just a really a bit of a timeline. We're working. A lot of this is building on what we have before, and so we hope to really have this scaled up next year. But we're already working now through a working group. And here's some recent activities that we did. So with that, I'm going to pause, and I know there's going to be an opportunity to potentially take questions a little bit later, but we really want to extend our arm and our partnership to JP-MIRAI and to others in this important endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you have questions, please put it in Q&A. Next, from Mekong Migration Network, Regional Coordinator, Ms. Reiko Harima, will talk about ASEAN Migrant Center Executive Director, Ms. Reiko Harima, will talk about excessive recruitment fees paid by migrant workers from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Myanmar to Japan. NGO perspective, please. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important symposium from Mekong Migration Network. That is, I want to introduce to you today. I am the Chief Coordinator, and also I am the Asian Executive Director of ASEAN Migrant Center. I will talk about today from my NGO perspective today. I have the 15 minutes to talk about in terms of its contents. These are the contents. I will talk about, I will introduce about my organization, MMN, and MMN work on labor migration to Japan, and excessive recruitment fees, and general observations. And then I will talk more in detail about Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and then conclusions and recommendations that I will talk about today. First, Mekong Migration Network is an NGO founded in 2003, and then MMN is a sub-regional network of CSOs, and it was established formally founded in 2003. Our purpose is to promote and protect the rights of migrants workers in the GMS, and to build mutual support and solidarity among migrants and advocates within the sub-region in Mekong region, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and also China and Vietnam included. But our main activities are these 5 countries. In the MMN network, the main area is information sharing and collaborative research, advocacy, capacity building, and networking. So and each of the members have the office in each of the region, so that is each member organization as such. So far, in 2003, originally it was tried to be founded in 2001 as a network. The original focus was in the Mekong region, for example, in Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and then to Thailand, and then Cambodia to Laos, and then there are, within the Mekong region, 5 to 7 million people are migrant workers and laborers, and that is our main theme of working. And within that region, the migrant workers and the role of the sending or in the country of origin as well as the country of the receiving those workers, and then those migrant workers. Or under the COVID-19, there was a very crisis situation in Myanmar of the coup d'etat in Myanmar during the period of the COVID-19 and so on. So in case of Japan, in case of the migrant workers in Japan, since around 2017, especially from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Myanmar, a lot more people are coming from those 3 countries to Japan, even though there are increase of the migrant workers. But in the country of origin, especially within NGO, for those, there's no capacity available in the country of origin to support them. So therefore, since 2017, our activities to help, and as from the side of the country of origin, and to support them and in their migrant working. And what we have done in our activity, in some of the work that we have done in Myanmar, Cambodia, and Vietnam, for the multi-stakeholders consultation was conducted, and that was the governments of each country, as well as with the meeting with the Embassy of Japan. And then those people who worked in Japan and came back to their own country of origin, like Myanmar, Vietnam, and so on, and that they have also participated in the consultation meeting, so that we can the country of origin sending those migrant workers sending out from the country of origin will become better. And to support them in various countries, CSO and NGOs and handbook was also made as well. Why? Because, as I mentioned earlier, in Vietnam and Cambodia and Myanmar, one reason, especially in Cambodia and Myanmar, as the major country of origin, most people go to Malaysia or Thailand, most workers. So in the NGO support, that has been our central focus so far. Because even though there were more increase to the migrant workers to Japan, and because we thought originally there was no problem, because Japan is more legally compliant country, we thought. But with the time progressed, there was no support being provided to migrant workers to Japan, and that we started to find some of the issues and for the migrant workers, and that also posed some risk for those migrant workers. So therefore, CSO and the organization in COO to be capacity building is important. And also in the country of origin, together with the members of the MMN, my organization in the recruitment process, what kind of Vietnamese and Cambodian migrant workers have experienced before coming to Japan. Before going to Japan, they should learn what kind of rights they have, and that we have made some opinion exchange with those actual migrant workers, and also when they come back, what kind of support they need when they come back to the country of origin, and that has been discussed.
And then for MECON's CSO capacity building as a course of that, so such visits to Japan, so assisting migrant deployed to Japan multiple times, and we have put together the documentary movie. And I would like to dedicate my talk in the recruitment fee from now. So for us, so we will certainly like to engage, and we have investigated from the country of origin, and then coming to Japan or among other countries due to the excessive recruitment fee. So by the time they start to work in Japan, they have so much, and they are in debt to begin with. And in order to repay for their borrowing, they need to work for more higher paying jobs, resulting in the disappearance of such migrant workers as a result of that. So therefore, to stipulate in the restriction of such excessive recruitment fees, there have been so much inconsistency. So even though you're working in Japan, the actual framework, there has been so much inconsistency in Mekong migrant workers coming to Japan. So there has been such a lenient situation. And so there's no shared understanding of what constitutes a recruitment fee and broad array of related costs. And the migrants often do not receive a clear breakdown of costs. And business relationship between recruitment agencies, employees, brokers, government officials create conflict of interest. And through the course of our interview, about 5,000 to 8,200 USD with the fee ranged, according to the recent MMN study. So, and many of the migrant workers report not receiving receipts or itemized explanation of fees paid. And also legal cap on fees. And despite such regulations, migrant workers are required to cover a variety of other costs, including service fee, travel expenses, fund for overseas employment support, skills and language training, health checks, Retirement and Survivorship Allowance Fund, criminal record checks, and visa fees. And while regulations are in place, implementation remains problematic due to gaps between law, policy, and practice. Additional challenges include inconsistency monitoring by government agents such as the DOLAB. And according to MMM and partners organizations, Cambodian migrants to Japan pay recurring fees of between USD 3,500 to 5,000 to finance recruitment-related expenses. Many resort to loans from microfinance institutions and informal money lenders. Interest rates are often exorbitant. Migrants often do not receive a clear breakdown of fees and migration-related costs, just like Vietnam. So currently, no legal cap on recruitment fees, and discussions to establish regulations have been ongoing for a number of years. If you come to Japan, up to 5,000. For specified a trainee, 3,000. To Thai, 500. That is the regulation. Recruitment fees. Having said that, it is not stipulated by laws and regulations. This is by the agency. This is the MOU. Between these country of origin. So it has been abided by, but it was about 3,500 to 5,000 has been paid before this has been stipulated, and this is extremely expensive. So it does not necessarily mean that the recruitment fee has been lowered. And with regards to microfinance, so from the time when this cap has been set up, so this is the one of the agency for the training for labor went through the MOU with 8 financial institutions. So 5,000 cap borrowing can be borrowed for Japan and 500 for Thai, 100% for the interest rate. So it's slightly higher. So for commercial banks, 6 to 7% for interest rate. But the benefit is that they do not have to have a loan for guarantee for loans, and do not need to set up such facility. And going through those financial institutions under the normal route for borrowing or setting up such loan program, you have to have the trust, have your mortgage. And as I was speaking to NGOs from Cambodia just the other day, they are already in debt for tremendous amount. And with the lower credit rate, they will not be able to go through the loan program from the financial institutions. So such policy for those migrant workers is applicable to, therefore. So in Cambodia, for those migrant workers whose families are already in debt, so 8% with the low interest cannot be borrowed. So then for those migrant workers, they have to seek out the loan program to the country of origin or seek out other means. So 2,800, that is the cap stipulated by the government before the coup d'etat. And 2021, before that, 2016, the Association for the Country of Origins working with the Ministry of Labor and ILO in order to establish that such guidelines has been stipulated, code of conduct has been stipulated. So back then there has been such much proactive discussion, garnered high expectation. However, after the coup d'etat, the monitoring and collaborative effort cannot be continued. So it is unclear how the situation has been. So any of the related costs pertaining to migrant workers are on the rise. For the public passport, $17, but through the broker to be queued, you will not be able to obtain or be issued with a passport. And this is de facto standard. So for the migrant workers, they have to pay extremely much higher fee for just applying for passport. So in summary, as compared to other countries for Mekong, migrant workers. So they are really willing to work in Japan as well. Having said that, many of the migrant workers are struggling to repay for the debt. And due to the valuation of the Japanese yen, they have suffered all the more. And by the time they, arrive to Japan, we can certainly avoid the detrimental situation. And we can really contribute for the betterment of the productivity so that for those companies who hire the migrant workers for Mekong, this will be a win-win situation. And the recommendation, as the other speakers have said the same, so would like to reiterate the message. So this Japan and the country of origin need to drive such collaborative effort and to try to work on the lowering of the recruitment fees and to avoid any of those inconsistencies. So unless you can evade those competitive situation in the situation. So we need to avoid the scenarios and avoid the situation that will be detrimental to the migrant workers. And the definition of the relevant fees need to be crystal clear. And the Japanese stakeholders to country of origin, that's recruitment fees and the relevant fees, need to communicate to the country of origin to drive the transparency. I know that the Department of Justice have presented before. So for Myanmar, we cannot really expect such framework stipulated by those municipalities or administrative body. So therefore, we really urge the Japanese companies to have a good direct communication with the country of origin in Myanmar. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Fair and Ethical Recruitment Initiative about ferry from JP-MIRAI. Mr. Shishido, please. Good afternoon. My name is Shishido from JP-MIRAI. And so far, as we talked about the international standard, but for JP-MIRAI, for Japanese companies, I like to talk about what kind of initiatives that we have been doing in Japan. For those of you who are listening to English, there are some English material of slides is also available as well. So as it has been, it without being saying, before there's fees, other fees, in a recent hearing, some of the workers have paid more than 1 million yen in Japanese yen, more than 1 million yen equivalent before coming to Japan. And also, that is the very high level, especially considering the income level of that country of origin. And why it is difficult to resolve this problem of the paying the fees is when listening to this story from the migrant workers, there's a broker and there are the very malicious recruitment agencies in the country of origin. That is there are some discussions to blame them, but actually in using this chart and especially because the company wanted cheaper labor workers and all the products to be produced, and they obviously you want to procure the less expensive workers, and then there will be some more vulnerable positions people, and that the ultimate cost to be paid and the ultimate person is the migrant workers. And that is something that we cannot really see, and it is not visible of this problem from Japan. And that is the biggest issue we have in Japan. It was established we are established in 2020, and we have been seeing this problem repeated again and again, and we have repeatedly organized the study group meetings, and with the international business, and to be more human rights initiatives that have been worked on so far, and also more progress in the initiatives by the European countries, so that we have to address that by the companies, and obviously, and even without that, I mean, those young workers who are coming from the developing countries and country of origin, and because it has been ratified, when they come from, they have to borrow the money of the 100,000 yen, or sometimes it's more than 1 million yen. And that is and for those of members, and I understand that is a significant big problem. But to achieve this, resolve this problem, of the day that migrant workers have to pay huge amount of money, and then even if you say information to be transmitted in a correct way, and to use some of the better recruitment agencies in Japan should be established, but actually that is not always the case. It's a joy fee that in certain countries it is just zero. The fees are zero of some of them. But then there are other fees being charged, like the trainings and so on. And this is also brand holders they are based on the European standard, and they want to build a standard, but the supplier don't really understand that. And that is a significant problem. And also for some of the comments that we have in RBA rule, based on the RBA, social audits are conducted in accordance with RBA rules, but it is difficult to respond when expenses are detected and refunds are required. This is also a risk of unfair expenses being borne. So my emphasis should be placed on prevention. This is also a need for a remedy mechanism during the recruitment process. These are the opinions and too many challenges. So therefore, in JP-MIRAI, it was established, JICA signed the MOC, that we worked with JICA as well. And since about 2 years ago, we work with the signed MOC with the International Labour Organization, ILO, to strengthen the partnership. And even also today, we have so many numbers from Vietnam. We have started to work with Vietnam 2 years ago. In Hanoi, we have done the forum, in Hanoi, and then Japanese companies. And then we also have the recruitment agencies in the country of origin, and also the recruitment agencies in Japan. And based on the international standard recruitment need to be achieved, to do that, all the stakeholders, because not everyone, not any particular stakeholder, but rather we have to work together with all the stakeholders. And we continue discussion, and in the same year, we have MOC with the Responsible Business Alliance, and the JP-MIRAI signed in MOC with the Responsible Business Alliance in 2023. So the last year, with the Vietnamese, we also have the Bahamas. We have people from Bahamas is also here today, and that is we have worked together so far with JP-MIRAI, with using the SIP mechanism of ferry as a basic framework, and that is the ferry. What is ferry? And that is what I'd like to explain to you. And in here, as it may be mentioned, this is the expenses not those international standard in the international level workers to be promoted as a voluntary also mechanism of the immigration services and guidance. And this is between the governments, there was each country or state need to be their own decisions. They cannot really achieve that level. Therefore, this is more voluntary initiative to achieve the private sector-led framework as ferry. And this is what I mean by that. As I mentioned earlier, the country of origin, and also the recruitment agencies in Japan, and the recruitment agencies in the COO, and those each players and employers, and they to play are the key players should play a correct role to be achieved, and therefore to prevent from some of the fees paid by the workers, the migrant workers themselves. And this we as the Secretary Office to do that. Of course, we have worked with the ILO and RBA as well. And also in order to promote the projects, we have received some financing from private companies and working with all the stakeholders and to build this cooperating framework of the basic framework of ferry. And the ferry is the important features. There are some of the guidelines that have been announced for the organizations, but for ferry, for each of the workers and to do the monitoring for each worker, so the mechanism is quite intensive, and to do the monitoring so that to be protect them. And also, obviously, we may not be able to achieve because it's ideal to be 100% zero payment from the workers themselves, but then we need to stage also the intermediate stage, and also precise seeking job, and what kind of housing provided, and what kind of work they need to do. Unfortunately, these type of things are not clear, like what kind of housing they're going to live in and so on. And this is in the reality in the logo mark with the ferry, and by clicking ferry for the migrant workers and from the younger people in the country of origin should understand the language is written in the ferry section of the banner, and as in the own native language consultation service contact it should be, and then to do the monitoring until they finish the working in Japan. And then also to motivate the participating companies and organization, and we have the awarding system, and to reduce the cost to be ethical way. That is very difficult in terms of business, so but they should provide some incentives, those selected companies, to work on these initiatives. I'm not going into details here because of the, sorry, this is a very detailed chart, but as I mentioned earlier, in each of the player, after they register, and to do the checking and monitoring, and then also from the country of organization, based on the guideline, they should do the recruitment by the recruitment agencies in the country of origin. But with the app, with the native operators, they can always to have the communication with the native language operators of the worker, and that should be done. And after confirming that, then before coming to Japan, then we issue a certificate to be certified for that.
And then those that has flying colors, of course, we will recognize them. Conversely, we may need to have a remediation and or to ask for an improvement or the withdrawal. So we need to issue those notices as well. For amongst the ferry initiatives, for other activities for target countries, it has not penetrated yet. So for those in participation, the success use cases and such have been shared, and amongst those organizations, we try to create such community and to analyze such data and to publish the results. And we are working to better the situation. So when it comes to this system, it is about to be initiated in Vietnam, Indonesia, Nepal. We have already concluded negotiation. So in May, June, these participatory countries, they will be initiating the system as well for amongst other countries as well. And Bangladesh, India, and among others, and we hear such requests. Those countries are going to be in consideration. So this is a detail slide. For those participating in ferry, we would like to ask for the membership fee, and this would be at the minimum cost. And at the outset, especially, we need to have more participating companies. So in order to drive the PDCA to facilitate such participation, we have such incentives for Vietnam. So no per pax fee will be charged for promotion in 2025, and also try to alleviate the cost for Vietnam. And this brings me to the last section in my talk. So some 2 years ago, we have been discussing about this, and the message given from JP-MIRAI. I know that we have heard today in the global society, we will be able to facilitate this, and there is a risk of being named for those violation of the human rights. So therefore, in order to de-risk those situation, if you put yourselves in the hiring countries, I believe that you pay about 1 million. We cannot pay 1 million more. So it's very cumbersome to address this type of the situation. So those are some of the feedback given to us. But in the panel discussion, we will discuss about this more in detail. It's not going to be cumbersome or burdensome if you work with those appropriate institutions. And this isn't something that has been done, forced to do so. As from the Ministry of Justice, ISA presented, we are in this competitive situation, and Japan is struggling to hire those migrant workers. So we would like to ask the guests from Vietnam later in the panel discussion. So zero fee, so-called cost mitigating initiatives. So for migrant workers not to be burdened to pay those recruitment fee. So we would like to hear more about how we can better secure the qualified workers. And by doing so, to have the high retention of the qualified workers, we do not have such data build up yet. But from the evidence, if you can hear more insights about this initial fee, 200,000 or 300,000 yen, from the corporate perspective, this is a win-win for them, as it may turn out. So this isn't something that the black sheep is coming towards you. So this is something that you need to work in this business to drive this decent work initiatives, and for the company to be able to be more sustainable. So through the course of practice, we will really certainly resonate to the society. That is all from myself today. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much. So today, all of the presenters' time management has been great. This is very rare occasion experience for me. We are on track with our agenda. I thought that it may be difficult to respond. Perhaps we may be able to. Well, it's only less than 5 minutes, but we would like to receive one question as a common question that we have received many questions, but if we would like to open up the floor for one question, if you can summarize all of the questions. So among those questions, by looking into this landscape, so such ethical recruitment, we have to do so. And in summary, so we agree to this unfair and ethical recruitment of migrant workers. So coming back to Shishido-san's presentation, so the next topic is how we can do this to drive the fair and ethical recruitment for migrant workers. So the cost burden, to how extensive the cost shall be burdened, by whom. So this is a very proactive proposal, and on the relevant areas, what we have heard so far. So Anna-san from ILO, in her presentation, she talked about pertaining to the Japanese language. So the employee, to the specified areas that should be burdened by the corporation. If not, then should not be burdened by the corporation side. So on the other hand, so what would be the scope for the exceptions. So it has to do with the country of origin stipulated by the Labor Ministry in the country of origin. And then, on the other hand, in Ms. Harima's presentation, with the example of Cambodia, among others, so that has been done so. However, as it has not been validated in terms of the recruitment fee. So this perhaps has to do with the rule making that needs to take place in the country of origin. So especially, I would like to pose a question for ILO or RBA from the international perspective. From the country of origin, any of the rulemaking or the guidelines, if there are such initiatives are ongoing, it will be greatly appreciated if I ask you to respond. And I'm so sorry to put you on the spot, but Ms. Anna-san, will you be able to say a few words about this point?
So my question is, so the people is now supporting this philosophy, but we need to find what is the rule. But according to the